So in this video, I'm going to go over the rules and do a little bit of gameplay so you can see how the game plays. And so in this, I've set up the land, the adventure tokens. I'm using the Bard as my hero. And so let's get started. So you can move up to 3 spaces, but you have to stop when you reach a token. So for this one, we'll turn this over. We got a 1 on the adventure token, which means that if I was to face an enemy, it's probably going to be pretty easy. So I'm going to try to get an enemy. So we shuffle the adventure deck and we get 2 cards. Now I can either reveal 1 card. I can either go with this card or I have to go with this card. Because this is a location, I'm going to try to go for this adventure card because I was trying to get an enemy. Now we did not get an enemy, we got an event. So let's see what our event is. So our event is a trap, which means we have to roll the die, and if it's 1, we get cursed, and if it's 2 or 3, we get damaged. So we'll roll the die. We get a 5. We basically disarm the trap, and my turn is over, and we didn't get any enemies. So let's continue trying to find an enemy. I got another 1. We'll grab 2 cards here. I'll flip this one over. Ooh, we do have an enemy, so I'm going to keep this card. And these cards should be face down, but it's harder to film. So we have an enemy. Let's see what our encounter says. Our encounter says that it's 2 plus whatever our space was. So we have a strength of 3 that we have to get over. Now, luckily, I get to add 1 to my roll because we're on a plains. So that's good because I needed that. So I got a 4, which lets me get this as gold, and I get to put it on my hero mat. So if we keep going, and let's say that I go here. Oh, I found the shadow castle. Let's reveal what our boss is. So we have the evil tree, which just has basically he gets +1 to his roll when he's attacking us, and he has a strength of 10. We have to get over 10 with 1 die, which you can see is pretty impossible, meaning that we're gonna have to use 2 dice, or we're gonna have to use some loot or something. So before we can attack the shadow castle, we got to get stronger. So I'm going to move over here, and this is a 2. So I don't know what I want. Let's see. Maybe we can get lucky. Ooh, it's a location. Let's see what else we have. Ooh, an enemy. Okay, so we're going to fight an enemy. Ooh, luckily, oh, it was a treasure had we got an event. So it was 2 plus 1, so another 3, but I don't get to add anything to my roll, so we need to get a 4, 5, or 6. So I don't want to take an attack in combat. There's a strike phase, then the enemy gets to attack if it's not killed, but I can keep going on in the strike phase. If I hurt myself, I can re-roll, so that's one of the advantages. I'm going to do it again. And I got a 6. So now I don't have to worry about taking his attack. If we were to take his attack, you roll both dice, and then you would subtract, this would have been very bad, it's been a critical hit. You subtract the lower number from the higher number, so we would be taking 5 damage here. Of course, there's armor and stuff that can help, but more often than not, it's usually 1 or 2 damage. Like in this case, it's actually 0 damage, but that's how the combat goes. After the enemy attacks, I can either retreat, which means I stop the combat, I don't get the token, or I can continue on another strike phase and try to roll the die and do the same thing. So, but in this case, we're going to get, we now have 3 gold, which is pretty good because that's how much we would possibly need to, that's how much we need if we were to go to a town, which is what we're trying to find. And so I'm going to cheat a little bit just to show some of the game. I'm going to move 3 here. We're going to reveal this token, and we're going to pull from the adventure card. I'm going to look. So let's just assume that I was able to get this location, because that's what I'm trying to go for. So we have a location, and I cheated by putting the town here. So now we're able to go to town, because I want to show you what happens. So when we're in town, this token gets placed off to the side. Now we can start spending our gold. And it costs 1 to heal. It costs 2 for a crystal, and it costs 3 for loot. And I want to get loot, but I also want to get a crystal. Luckily, our special ability is that those things cost 1 less. So it only costs 1 for a crystal and 2 for loot. And so I happen to have 3 that I'm going to spend. I'm going to get a crystal. And then I'm going to look at the treasure. And what you do is you take 2 cards, and you get to pick one of the 2 that you want. I'm going to go with the sword. And then the treasure goes onto the bottom of the deck. So this sword, what it lets me do is it lowers their strength each turn. Now, let's imagine that we were going to the Shadow Castle, and we wanted to fight the tree. So the first thing I can do is I can spend my crystal, which allows me to roll both dice. And I'm going to put a crystal on the tree just to recognize that every strike phase, his defense will go down. So it's actually just a 9. But I get to roll 2 dice. And I rolled a 7. But just like in combat, I can lower my health to 3 and re-roll one of the dice. Perfect. We rolled a 12. I didn't even need the sword. The tree is gone. One of the rewards is I can either get a crystal or a treasure. I'm definitely going to get the treasure. Oh, this is good. Now, you can only have 1 orange and 1 blue loot. That's the... every character can only have that much. So right now, we are completely filled out on what loot we can carry. We have armor, which would reduce 2 damage anytime we would take damage. So, for example, if the tree had attacked right here, we would normally take 3 damage, but now we would only take 1 damage. And it would go to another strike phase, which would then lower him even more. So the sword and the armor work good together because the armor lets you stay in the fight longer, and the sword works better the longer you're in the fight. So that's actually a really good combination that I just got. But once we defeated the Shadow Castle and we have this token, we can now make our way... Oops, I didn't mean to move that. Eventually we can make our way to the dragon, and we have to face the dragon. You'll notice that the dragon's strength is 4, so any damage you do over 4 starts lowering his health until you eventually get rid of all of his health. He's the only enemy in the game that has health. All the other enemies, you just have to get over a value, and it kills them. But obviously, I'm pretty weak right now because I only have 3 health, and there's still all these tokens, so I can still get some gold, heal at towns, or find a church to heal at, and possibly definitely need some crystals for the boss. So you're still leveling up and getting stronger to be able to take out the dragon. But we did finish our first objective, which was killing the Shadow Castle. And that's just a sample playthrough. I'm going to stop it here. It was nice to show the Shadow Castle, how we do movement, how the adventure deck works, how the encounter deck works. And of course, combat is done with the die rolling and with dice mitigation. The only other thing that I should mention is that in a cooperative game, if you're at the same location, and typically you only really need to assist at the final boss here. It could be at the shadow boss, because that's kind of the only time you really get 2 people together. But one player can hurt themselves by 2 to essentially give a crystal to the other player. So if it was the yellow player's turn, blue could assist by hurting by 2, and then they would get a second die. The reason why this is done is because the more players that you add into the game, the less tokens each player will get. So in a single player game, you're going to get stronger. You're going to be able to get a lot of gold and get a lot of loot. But that starts diminishing the more players you add to the game, which really keeps the balance. So while you have a bigger health pool because there's different heroes, and you can hurt yourself to sort of give the crystals, which is what is a huge part of the game so that you can roll 2 dice, less adventure tokens are available for each player. And that's why the the bard is such a great hero, because it costs less, so he can really get outfitted quicker and leave some of the tokens for the other players. But of course, any combination of players work, and they all have their strengths. Really no weaknesses on any of them. And that was a sample playthrough. Thank you.